Hi everyone, I'm Dick Beardsley. Welcome to the fishing scene. Hey folks, man, we're out here in the first part of August, and let me tell you, it is hot. It's 90 degrees, in the 90s I should say today, and bright sunshine, not much wind, but we're out here band fishing for crappies and bluegills. And you know what folks, believe it or not, we're catching these fish right up on top of a hump in about 4 foot of water right in the middle of the afternoon. Now you're saying, holy, oh, there's one right there. Oh, look at that little crappie. Boy, they don't get much smaller than that one. We're gonna get him back in the water here. Let me just I've got a buoy out here that I've marked the top of this hump. Now, humps are a great place to fish for panfish, you know, like crappies and bluegills in the summer time, but most often you'll find those fish on the sides, not up on top, especially in the middle of the afternoon. Now, a lot of times early in the morning or later in the day, you're going to find those up on top, moving up there, maybe chasing some bugs or minnows, but rarely do you find them in the middle of the day. Now, what we did was, did I know they're going to be there on top? Are you kidding? Not at all. I thought for sure they're going to be on the sides. Now, on this hump, it drops off into 15, 18 foot of water fairly quickly, so we started fishing the sides and not really getting anything. Well, then we made a couple of casts towards the middle up on top, and I'll be darned if we didn't start catching a few fish. So I thought, well, maybe that's just kind of a freaky deal, and sometimes it is. You'll get one wandering up there and your bait happens to go by them and they're gonna whack at it. So I didn't throw out a buoy. So I cast it again, and boom, I got another one. And now, at that point then, I chucked out a buoy. Again, we're out in the middle of the lake here, and if you don't throw out a buoy or some type of a marker, the light breeze that we have today, or even if it's totally calm, you can drift off, or you can, you know, your motor will just kind of take you off those spots, and it's sometimes hard to get back. So I threw out a buoy, and what we're doing here, there's not one spot where those fish are concentrated. They're just kind of moving back and forth all along the top of this hump. Now the hump, it tops out at about 4 feet, and there's obviously some pretty good weed growth out there. Now the weeds don't come all the way up to, there's one right there. The weeds don't come all the way up to the surface. Oh, I just got off, that felt like a nice fish. The weeds don't come all the way up to the surface. So what's nice is what we're doing here, we're using a small jig with a plastic tail, and we're flipping that jig out there, and we're not letting it fall all the way to the bottom, of course, otherwise you're gonna get just hung up in the weeds. We've cast it out there, let it sink a little bit, and then just kind of a slow, steady retrieve, and a little jig once in a while with the end of your rod tip, and you can feel that jig kind of, there's one right there, oh, I missed him. You can feel that jig going right across the top of those weeds. That's where you want to be. Now, people ask me, why are those fish up so shallow? Well, a couple reasons could be. One is that there could be some bait fish up in there, hiding up in those weeds. Plus, those fish, what they'll do is, they'll get down in those weeds where it's shady. And then what you're doing is you're pulling that bait across the top of them. And remember, with a fish, especially like a crappie, the way their eyes are situated on their heads is that, there's one. Let's see if I can get this one in the boat. There's Sunny. Not a bad one if you're going to put some in to eat. I mean, he's not big, but he's barely an eater. We're going to throw him back. Let me back up here. But those fish are hiding down there in those weeds, so you're pulling that bait right atop the edge of the top part of the weeds. And what happens is a couple things. They see them, or they'll see something coming through the weeds. You know, because those little jigs, they'll catch on the top of those weeds without getting hooked up completely, but it's pulling those weeds, that attracts the fish, boom, they come up to take a look, and they grab your bait.
There's more of the fishing scene in just a moment.
There's one. Oh yeah, a little crappie. All right, come here, little guy. Go back and get your mama and your grandpa. Well, folks, let's talk about the water conditions and the types of conditions that we're fishing today. We've got a very, very light breeze straight out of the south at probably at 1 or 2 miles per hour at best. Water temperature 80 degrees, air temperature in the low 90s, and water clarity not very good. It's kind of churned up a little bit, but that's the conditions we're working at. And that could be one of the reasons that the fish are up a little more shallower today, is because of the water is a little bit turbid, a little bit wound up for some reason, not very clear. Now there is a little bit of a bloom going on here, so what happens then, that water does get a little more greener color, and that sun won't be able to penetrate quite as much. So that's, again, maybe one of the other reasons why those fish are up here on top and not down more closer to the edge or the deep breaks. Let's get back out there and see if we can't catch a few more. Like I said, what we're doing, folks, is just casting it out there, and we're just fan casting and just kind of a slow, steady retrieve and a little jig once in a while. And as I said, you can feel that jig going right across the tops of those weeds. That's where you want to be. And we're using small enough jigs where most of the time you're not going to get hung up in there. Now what I've got on here today is I've got a 32nd ounce Lindy little nipper jig with a 1-inch little tube. Now I've got the flecks in there again. On the tube there, I've got these little white flecks, silver colored flecks in there. And what that'll do, any light that does penetrate down there, it's going to catch the attention. It's going to give a little bit of a flash, so those fish have a little bit better chance to maybe see that little flash. And again, it doesn't take much to get their attention. And usually when they get something that draws their attention, they're going to come over and take a look. Every once in a while you can be reeling and then stop, pull back up. Now remember, when you're using these small jigs, it takes, oh, I just missed one. It takes a while for those jigs to get down there. So the last thing you want to do is reel too fast. So if you think you're reeling slow, slow down just a little bit more, and then you should be okay. And of course, you'll know you're reeling too slow if you start getting down there in the thick weeds and get hung up all the time. And if you don't feel any weeds, the tips of those weeds, every once in a while, then you know you're reeling too quick. So you want kind of right in between. And we've drifted down from our buoy a little bit here. So now that breeze has come up just enough to push the boat, that's why it's doubly important to make sure you have that buoy out there now. As you can see, I'm really just working this jig slow. There's one right there. There's a nicer crappie. Get him in the boat here. Hey, did you see that, folks? I was working that so slow, and then all of a sudden you just give it a light little thunk, and that was it. Hey, folks, now what you can also try, now that we got a little bit of a breeze, depending on the size of this island or wherever type of a flat or whatever you're fishing, there's one right there, is this little guy here. Little, look at that little sunny. What I'm doing here is utilize this wind. Now we're probably a good 40 yards from our buoy, but we're still up on top of this hump. And so what I'm doing now is I don't even have to really, cast and reel in. I'm just reeling in a little bit, but the boat is moving just enough to where you can utilize that wind and just kind of drift along that whole top part and maybe get some of these fish that are scattered out. Oh, I just had a little bump. Scattered out and about. And sometimes that presentation works better actually than, there's one right there. Oh, folks, that was a good one. That was a nice crop. You can just tell. You fish enough and you can tell the way they bite and the way they start pulling what kind of fish it is. Not all the time, but most of the time, that was a nice crop. I could tell just the way he bit and then the way he started tugging. Now I'm doing that procedure, just like I said, I've casted it out, and there's one right there. Not a very big one. Get back out there. Now here's what happens sometimes, folks. See how that tail is kind of cockeyed there. You do not want to leave it like that. Take the time and just readjust it, push it back up towards the head of the jig there, and then it'll look a lot more natural coming through the water. Now what I'm doing here, I'm keeping a close eye on my sonar here to make sure we're still up on that top of that sunken island, which we are. And then once we get down on the other side, what I'll do is I'll probably let it dip down a little bit just to see if there's any fish out there deeper. But so far, all of our fish have been coming up on top. There's one. Come here, buddy. He's swimming towards the boat on me. And they'll do that sometimes, and you'll feel that little tick, and then you think, well, maybe he got off, but they'll swim towards the boat like this. Yeah, nice little gill. Come here, buddy. Yeah, come here. Yeah, hey, that's not a bad little gill there, huh? No. Aren't they pretty? Nice fish. Nice fish. Get him back in the water here.
Don't flip the channel. Dick will be back with more.
There's one. Ooh, this one feels like a better one, folks. That one feels like a better one. The way he's kind of rolling there, he feels like a gill. Yep, she's kind of going like a pan. There she comes. There's a pretty nice bluegill. Yeah, come in here, buddy. Yeah, that's not a bad gill there. No, nice summertime gill, huh? Folks, you can see I changed my plastic bait on there. I had one that got pulled off there. And so what I did was I went and put on a different one. And that's, listen, don't be afraid to change things up a little bit. The other one I was using was a tube with little feeler legs on it. This one now I went with a 2-inch thumping grub by Lindy Little Joe Tackle Company. And that tail, when it comes through the water, it kind of, you know, circulates back and forth. And again, it's got the specks in there. And boy, that gill just hammered that one. There's one. Little guy. Well, he's tugging a little bit better. He's tugging a little bit better. Sometimes they'll start swimming towards the boat there. A little bluegill. Not a very big one, but they can fight. Get him back in the water to get a little bit bigger. I'm kind of liking that thumping grub. Oh, missed one. Sometimes, folks, when you're reeling that in a little bit, the tops of those weeds will grab that bait. And boy, a lot of times it can feel just like a fish grabbing onto it. So if it feels like a fish, give it a little extra tug and give it a hook set. You can try varying your retrieve too. You know, stop and go, reel it a little bit, let it sink, reel it. Sometimes on the fall is when they're going to hit that. Give it a little jig once in a while. Try some different techniques until you find the one that seems to work the best. Right now, it seems like just more of a steady retrieve with every once in a while a little bit of a jig. It seems to be the technique they're preferring right now. There's a fish. Come here, buddy. Oh, he got down those weeds on me too, I think. Come on. Sometimes they'll bulldog you, folks. They'll come up out of those weeds, grab that bait, and then take it right back down in the weeds on you. There it's coming. And what you want to do is just put steady pressure, and usually that fish will work its way right out of there. And this one's coming up. It might have a bunch of weeds on it. A pretty nice looking gill. Yeah, he's got the weeds there on him. Got down some of that coontail. Come here, buddy. You got a little salad dressing on you. Yep, that's what he did. He came up right out of those coontail, snatched it, and went right back in there before I could get him turned back around. Pretty fish.
Okay.
There's one. Feels like a crop. Yep, there he comes. Come here, crop. Come here, buddy. Hey, not a bad fish for an eating size fish. Hey, folks, what I did this time, or what I should say, what I want to tell you this time is this, is that, you know, we went from a 1-inch tube to a 2-inch tube. That means it's a little bit bulkier, so it's going to sink even slower. So the key is, anytime you go to a bigger plastic on the jig that you're using, make sure, like if you're fishing the way we're doing today, fishing over the tops of those weeds on this hump, that you want to really slow it down even more, because it's going to take that much longer for that plastic and that jig to sink down. So just a little tip there, you might not want to forget. Get this guy back in the water here. There we go. Come here, buddy. Come here, buddy. You're dogging down there. Oh, nice gill. Nice gill. There we go. Hey. There we go. Yeah, that's a nice gill there, folks. Huh? Nice fish. Got that thumper hanging out of his mouth. That thump and grub tube, or that thump and grub jig, I should say, with the plastic on there. Get him back in the water. Yeah, that's a nice one. The kind that you can hardly get your hand around. Those are the kind that we're out here looking for. Well, the wind, again, you know, it's not much, folks, but it's enough to where we can, you know, move back up in towards where our buoy is and then drift back down. Now, I got that one fan casting, drifting back up towards the buoy. Now, when I get up there, now I did get on the other side of the buoy to try that, but the fish definitely seem the other direction. So we're actually on this bar, the way this bar runs out here, this sunken island, I should say, we're at where the buoy is at the south end of it, and where we're catching most of the fish are right in the middle of it. Oh, I just missed one. Now, when you feel that little thunk, there's one right there. There we go. Come on, buddy. Oh, he hit that bugger, and then he got down in the weeds on me. Come on. Can't tell what it is yet. I think he's got in the weeds. I hope he's... Oh, there he comes. Oh, it's a crop. Yep. He got down in the weeds on. Oh, he jumped like a bass pretty near. All right, come here, buddy. There we go. Not a bad crappie, huh? Not a bad crappie. Middle of August, 90 degrees outside, 80-degree water temperature. Not a bad fish. There we go. Come on, buddy. Oh, I'll be darned. He got me down in that weeds, too. Come on. There he comes. Oh, did he get off? No, there he comes. He's swimming towards the boat there. Come here, crop. I hope he flipped off my little thumper, plastic thumper grub. Come here, buddy. Pretty fish those crappies are. There we go. Come on, buddy. Come on. Come on. He's dogging in that coontail down there. It's amazing how they can get down in there. There he's coming. There he just came. You can just feel him. Yeah, there he comes. It doesn't look like he has much coontail on him, but he had a bunch of it down there. But it's amazing how those, even a fish of this size can get in there and get all wrapped up in it. There we go. Come here, fishy. Come on, buddy. There we go. Little crop. All right. There we go. Hey, folks, I'll tell you what. It's middle of August, 90 degrees, high water temperatures. We're catching crappies and bluegills right up on top of the sunken islands in about 5 feet of water. You can do the same thing. Don't always sink deep when it's real warm out. Please remember to practice selective harvesting. By doing so, we'll continue to have great fishing for years to come. For my camera gal, Raina Benson, I'm Dick Beardsley, Have a great day on the water.